Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and today is a big one. Today is Bathurst Day. Today is Mount Panarama. This is it's the big daddy, isn't it? So welcome back. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and checked out the Ultimate Track Guide series, because today we're in for a treat. We're tackling the mountain, and we're tackling it in a GT3 Ferrari, which I know a lot of people like to drive, and it's something that I'm driving the upcoming sort of Bathurst 12 hours as well. So let's dive in. Let's get straight into that, and let's see how much sort of emphasis I can put on how to improve on this track. And you're immediately hit by this first corner. It's super awkward, and the braking point is strange because it's in between two different braking markers, and you're looking for the change of colour in the wall on the right hand side, just where it changes into that sort of dark bluey blacky colour. You can take a little bit of curb on the inside and run all the way over the curb onto the Astro. Although do mind, because there's a big old bump on the outside there which will unsettle your car, especially like in this Ferrari, that you change up a gear just as you go over that bump, so be mindful of that. Coming into the second corner then, you've got nice braking markers. You've also got this little slip road on the outside here, which is what I use for my braking point here sort of during the race. Just at the end of this slip road, down a couple of gears, you need to throw it into this corner more than you think. Look how tight we are already to the apex, and it seems just that the camber of the corner just makes the car grip there, and you need to be really early on the power. Again, I leave a lot of room on the outside there, but you can go all the way over that curb on the left hand side. Full power just until about this point here where we hit the brakes. Try and hit brake in a straight line. If you brake before that left-hander, you're going to unsettle the car, and unless you've got a really high preload diff, it's going to struggle around this left-hander. So nice and straight on the brakes, down into second and potentially first gear in a lot of cars. Turning in nice and early. You see how I'm a little bit on the throttle. If you look to the bottom right-hand side of the screen where the sort of speedo is, you can see my throttle input is it's about 20% or so, just to stabilise the car. Really important. And if you do change down a gear too late, then the back end is going to squirm, and you're going to lose a lot of momentum through this hill, which is flat in hot lap in a lot of these cars. Up to fourth gear then, a lot of people like to take a slightly wider line, and what I mean by that is slightly to the right hand side of the track here to straighten the entry into the next corner, but I think you can get away with cutting in inverted commas this a little bit. So I like to stay to the left, out to the white line on the right hand side, and cut in. Do not, and I cannot repeat, do not hit that curb on the inside. You will spin. Now this is a little bit different from this one. I missed the apex. I'm not going to lie, I missed the apex a little bit on this corner. You need to start turning in just before the start of the crest, and I don't do that, as you'll see, but you can actually take this flat in this Ferrari if you get a good line there. So it's really important to turn in a little bit earlier than you think there, because there's a lot of adjustability there. Let's look at it from above. Obviously there's a long straight in the middle, but looking for that change of wall colour, taking a little bit of curve. You see how straight the car goes on the exit there? We go right over the Astro and onto the slip road on the right hand side. So it's all about maximising the speed down this straight. It doesn't matter too much about that apex speed, it's all about how much time you can gain down this straight, which we're up to 160 odd miles an hour. So looking for the slip road. Turn in nice and early on the power, really early as well. You've got a lot of leeway, and if your car's set up well, you can really floor it nice and early there to get momentum up the hill, start climbing the mountain. Braking a straight line, using that throttle to stabilise the car. Again, nice and early on the power, especially to stabilise. It's so bumpy and so off camber and so awkward that you need that stability in the differential. It needs to be working, otherwise you're really going to suffer. Flat through the left-hander, do not hit the curb on the inside. You can run it right the way out to the wall. Turn in a little bit early than I did. As you see, I just missed the apex a little bit there. So really technical. Let's just play it through again in full speed in car view. So you take a little bit of curb. You don't want to be taking any more than that, because you're going to start to unsettle the back end. You're not going to get the power down quick enough, and that's going to compromise you all the way up the straight. You're going to be losing tenths if you cut that curve too much. It's all about that smooth power application to maximise speed into this second corner. Nice and early on the brakes, nice and early turn in. Power again, nice and low. It seems it's a theme, isn't it? Nice and early on the power. Nice and smooth, really smooth through this left-hander, braking in a straight line as much as you can, using the throttle to stabilise the car. You can get on the power earlier than you think then, and then it's flat all the way up to the top of the mountain till we start coming downhill again. As long as your car is set up well, all of this is flat. Bring it over to the right-hand side of the track just slightly. Turn in just before that white line gets solid on the right hand side, run it right to the wall, be cautious not to hit it. Turn in a little bit earlier than what I did then, and we're in. I'm just going to pause it here because it's going to come thick and fast, the downhill. I'm going to try my best to get through this, but what you've got to remember is that huge tip of using the throttle to stabilise the car. I think it's an underestimated skill, especially in this game, so let's roll with it. So I'm going to pause this here. I've just changed down again to 4th gear, so we're still doing 150 odd miles an hour, just to stabilise it, just before we go over the crest. You don't want to be braking on that crest, because you will spin, and I'll guarantee everyone has done it, including me, about 100 times. Again, another little short sort of squirt of braking, if you like, down a couple of gears. I run a bit wide, but look how early I turn in to this left hand. It looks like I'm going to hit the wall. On a normal corner, I would hit the wall if I turned in this early here, and I'm turning in quite sharp as well. Still on the brakes, just about to apply a little bit of throttle. And when you apply the throttle here, you need to go hard, because it's gonna drive you round the corner. Use the diff to turn the back end of the car. There's a big bump on the inside. You're looking for the drain cover on the right hand side as a nice early braking point. You see I'm already coming off the throttle here. It's all about braking nice and smooth down into this really awkward sort of almost double apex or double walled edge, you see what I mean, corner. Really early in the brakes, you see I don't actually go to full braking capability down there. First gear, a little bit of oversteer on the outside, but not too bad. So again, let's replay that. And let's just replay it in slow-mo, because I think it's going to be easier to tell. So down a gear, a little bit of braking in a straight line. You're off throttle while you're turning, braking in a straight line again, and another little stab. I run a bit wide. You definitely need to be over to the right-hand side of the track more, but turning in early on the power, getting the diff to turn the back end of the car around there, so you gain that momentum. And I cannot stress enough that turning in early there is super important. Nice and smooth on throttle, looking for that drain cover as a bit of a braking point. Heavy braking, but not full braking, sort of 80% or so going downhill, and then coming off that brake, trail braking nicely into there. First gear in a lot of cars, you can run it much wider than I did through there. And I think it's probably worth looking at that just once more from above, because it will give you a really good idea of sort of the lines to go down this downhill section. See how close we need to get to the wall through there, and try and straight line the second half of that as much as possible. Again, really early. You see that sort of double wall I was talking about on the inside. As soon as you get past that kink on the left hand side, that's your cue to really floor it and make the most of this run onto the straight. Again, it's not about taking as much speed through that hairpin. It's about maximising the speed down this really long straight. So back in car, then coming into the final couple of corners with 6th gear, 175 miles an hour. Use a bit of road on the left hand side, braking in between these the 150 and the 100 metre board. A lot of the time it's towards the 100 metre board, but I advise you to brake earlier than you think you do for this one, because if not, you're either going to send it into the gravel trap, or you're going to get a horrible oversteer moment just as you turn in, and it's going to compromise your exit here. Again, don't hit this curb on the inside. It's a big fan of, I really like to hit this curb, not on purpose. It just seems to draw me in. But do not hit that. You want your tyre just on that blue dot. Then it's as smooth as exit through there. I think you can afford to take less speed through the apex. This one, you've got this band just after the 100 metre board. It's actually where the first sort of a grid marker is, and that's where you want to be braking nice and smooth. You can actually bring it across to the right hand side of the track nicely. I get a little bit of a lock up, again nice and early on the power. You can use that curb, but don't go over it, as you will bottom out and compromise just on the end of your lap and across the start finish straight and beginning of your next lap. Again, I think it's worth looking at this from above. So actually you can see how I bring the car over to the left to straighten up this line on the right hand side, get over to the right hand side, brake before the 100 metre board, off the power, using that throttle just to stabilise the car a little bit. As soon as you're through the apex, it's full power up through 3rd and 4th gear, bringing the car over to the right hand side, looking for those grid boxes, down into 2nd, turn in a little bit later than you think you need to, on the curb and not over it, and across the line you go. I think it's worth watching the lap in full, so let's run through it just in car view, just before the 50 metre board, braking a little bit of curb, run it all the way out over onto the Astro, full power. Don't compromise your line up this straight. It's so important. You can lose sort of 3-4 tenths of a second just from a little bit of wheel spin or compromising your exit there, or down this straight. Looking for the slip road on the left then. 2 gears, turn in earlier than you think you do. Nice and early on the power. You can run it a lot wider there, so it's It's all about that speed carrying through the apex here. Brake after and in a straight line, using that throttle to stabilise the car, especially if your your preload diff isn't particularly high. You're going to need to stabilise the car. Flat up to the top of the mountain. Bring the car over to the right hand side. Make sure you don't turn in too early for this one. If you hit that curb you will spin. You'll end up in the slip road on the left there. Turn in earlier than you think for this one. I'm a touch wide, but it's okay. Changing down before you get to the crest. Do not brake while you're going over the crest or curbs. Try brake in a straight line. I'm a little bit wide, but turn in earlier than you think for this left-hander. Use the diff to bring the car around and straighten that little mini chicane into the hairpin. All about braking early and not as hard. As soon as you see the second wall on the left-hand side, the little kink, that's your cue to go full power and ready for one of the longest straights in the game, other than sort of Paul Ricard really. Little bit of a breather. Time to think about where you're going to change gear, go over this crest, bringing the car over to the left hand side of the track and aiming to spot your braking between 150 and 100 metre board, somewhere in the middle. Nice and early, off the brakes, use the throttle again to stabilise, but back on full power as soon as you feel the rear end of the car settling down and biting. Good run into the final corner, use the grid markings or the 100 metre board. A little bit later than you think to turn in. You can get on the power earlier than you think as well, and across the line in a 1:59.5. Guys, I hope that was useful for you. There's a lot of upcoming racing at Bathurst and on Mount Panarama, and you know, if you did like that, then obviously like the video and do subscribe to the channel. Track guides are going to be coming thick and fast this year, so do contribute to the sort of community that we're building, and hope to see you next time. Cheers, guys. Bye.